Welcome to Politics with Cheri Jacobus, where I give it to you straight, even when it hurts. No spin, just the raw truth. I'm Cheri Jacobus. Follow me on Twitter at Cheri Jacobus and check out my website at cherijacobus.com. Now let's start dishing it up. Raw. Hey, everybody. My pal, Bad Brad Berkwitt, is my guest this week. Many of you have seen me on his YouTube show. You've seen Glenn Kirshner on a lot. He's got a lot of big guests. Brad is he is a veteran, and he is joining Vote Vets in DC for a protest in October. And they're going to be looking at the damage that the possible Republican government shutdown is going to do, not just to the country, but to veterans. He's very, very articulate on this issue and on a lot of issues. He's probably going to drop the F-bomb. He does that. We can live with that, I think. But been wanting to have him on for a while, just because he's a lot of fun. He's a pal. He's very big on Twitter. His show gets a lot of traction. And he's been an actor. His father was an actor. Now he's an activist, even though he's also a boxer. And he was on TV as a commentator for boxing for a long time. So he's got a long resume. We're going to talk about that. If you're not following him on Twitter, you need to do so. And also, he's the publisher of ringsidereport.com. But mainly, what we're going to talk about is his work on behalf of veterans and his activism on that front, and on a lot of fronts. He's good guy, real good guy. So let's see what's going on. We just found out that Senator Bob Menendez has been indicted. It's pretty cut and dry. It's a little awkward since his daughter has a show on MSNBC, and I think she's fine. And this is not a personal slam, but sometimes there are some negatives to nepotism. If you're a Nepo baby and you can say, well, I got here on my own. Well, no, you didn't, but that's the way the world works. We all know that. But sometimes you're going to be living with the negatives of that as well. And sometimes people want to have it both ways. They want the benefits of being the son or daughter or wife or husband or whatever of somebody who's famous and powerful. But then when what hits the fan and some of it gets on you, it can be awkward. But that's the world we live in. A lot of people in media are like that. You see they are the sons and daughters of big, powerful, famous people. That's just the way it is. And those of us who've been in the business see that, who haven't benefited from that. And you can say, oh, you're just jealous. Well, let's set aside what you think our emotions are and just look at it for what it is. And then you decide how you feel about it. And also decide who you make your heroes. I mean, you heard me talk about that a lot. Some of the people who are the big political and legal commentators on TV are not necessarily people who are the most qualified, but they were once married to the right people or knew how to play the right game, everything along those lines. I really gravitate towards the former federal prosecutors, people who have actually been in the arena. I love Glenn Kirshner. I like to hear politics from people who are like me, who have worked in politics or have held office and really worked in politics. Not, oh, I'm going to have a blog for 6 months, so Fox will put me on as a pundit. So there's a big difference for people who have actually done the work and been in the arena for years and for decades. We know the difference. Political journalists, same. The people who actually cut their teeth on like a print beat and covered Congress and, covered campaigns by really having to ride around on the bus. I look at someone like Norah O'Donnell. She's the real deal. And I remember Norah O'Donnell when she was young working for Roll Call. And then I think she was like a booker for like local Fox TV in DC. So she did print. She actually did the footwork, the shoe leather work. And she's glamorous and she's beautiful and she's in everything like so many of them are on television. But she's an example of the real deal. I'm not cheerleading for anybody. I have no reason to do that. I'm just telling you how it is. And that's it. Also, I want to say a few words about John Fetterman, because this seems to be kind of a big deal that's growing, whether you think it should be or not. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer changed the Senate rules at the request of John Fetterman to allow him to wear a shirt and shorts or hoodie or whatever on the Senate floor, even when presiding over the Senate. That's never been. They are supposed to dress professionally in suit and tie. And so a lot of people saying, oh, who cares what they wear? It doesn't matter. I think John Fetterman is great. I'm glad he's there. But as a political analyst and a political operative, I'll tell you, it is politically stupid for him to do this. And here's why. A lot of people like the decorum of the Senate and need it. There's nothing wrong with that, particularly in a time when we have so little to hang on. We'd like to know that the people we send there are going to respect it enough to act and dress professionally. And I don't think that's out of line for us at all. But politically, it makes no sense for him to want special rules for himself. I know he's 6'8". It's harder for him to find suits, but it can be done. We've seen him in suits. So maybe it's an inconvenience for him, but here's the thing for him personally. He almost did not get elected because people were concerned about the stroke that he had, which he has recovered from. And he set a wonderful example for other people who have suffered strokes. Then we have him having to take time off because he was suffering from depression, something that millions of Americans can identify with. From a political perspective, whether it is fair or not, and I want you to remember that I said that, I'm not talking about what's fair or what you think should be because, it's your guy. I'm just talking about how it is. Fair or not, because he has rightfully had special concessions and special considerations for the stroke and for his bout with depression, adding something else onto it, a special consideration that really doesn't have any basis to it other than he doesn't like wearing suits. I mean, he knew what the job was before he ran for it. That politically is not wise. And it doesn't affect just him. The rest of the party in the Senate, has to deal with this. So I'm just wondering, why do that? Why throw a third thing onto the pile? Why throw a third log into the fire? And again, I'm dealing, this would be political advice to him. I'm not advocating, but then he this and not everybody, and young people don't care. And if you live in Florida, you learn to, none of that matters. We're talking about the United States Senate. And he has now asked for a special consideration just for him. They changed the rules for everybody, but a special consideration after already having two legitimate special considerations. But too many of these pile up, and this one is unnecessary. And we know that. It's just a personal preference on his part. And I don't think that's good enough. So I hope, I can see people wanting to defend him. But again, I'm looking at it just as a political operative, not as an activist. And the same thing for Kristen Sinema, the way she dresses. She's trying to get attention. And you can't say, you shouldn't be judging people on the way they dress. It's like, well, yeah, we do. How you choose to present yourself to the world is how you're asking people to judge you. I'm sorry, but that's a reality, whether you like it or not. And it may seem unfair, but, Senator Sinema is purposely dressing in clothing that is off for being a senator. It's very tight. It's very wild. She can, I guess, choose to dress however she wants to express herself, as we all can. But when you express yourself and you're putting it out there and saying, this is who I am, people are going to judge you. That's just the way it goes, people. So, yeah, and it wasn't too long ago where women senators were not even allowed to wear pantsuits onto the Senate floor. Pantsuits. So while progress is good, I'm just looking at it at the political realities, and that's it. So if y'all want to come at me for that, so be it. But please remember that I didn't say it was fair. I'm looking at political realities, not how we think it should be. So I don't think that Senator Fetterman should have been pushing this. I think he should have just gone out and invested in a few tailor-made suits and suck it up. And then when he's back home in Pennsylvania and he's in his various district offices and going to events, then he can dress however he wants and tell his constituents, you'll just have to suck it up or whatever. So that's it. I'll ask Brad about it. I don't know how he feels. I haven't checked to see if he's been tweeting about that, but we'll discuss it. I'll give my point of view. We'll see what he has to say about it. But mostly, yeah, kind of like I really would like to hear him talk about veterans and how some of the things going on, particularly with these proposed budget cuts, are going to affect veterans. And he's traveling in from Chicago. I think he lives in the Chicago area. So he'll be coming from Chicago to Washington in a few weeks to do this. So that's kind of good. Oh, by the way, while we're talking about our elected officials and the way they dress, it is very legitimate and real for people to be able to slam Jim Jordan for never wearing a suit jacket. I don't know why he does it. I think he thinks it makes him look more like every man, or something like that. But it's ridiculous. He's clearly trying to make some statement. I don't know what it is. But then when it comes to Jim Jordan, we've got a lot more problems in his ridiculous hearing with Merrick Garland. But these are the times in which we live. We see a lot of comparisons with our politicians about things that shouldn't matter. They do. And as political effort as we just accept that they matter and try and make sure that we do the best with them. And one of them we've talked about, of course, is Joe Biden's age versus Donald Trump's age. Joe Biden is in excellent shape. And Donald Trump can barely walk, People say, oh, don't body shame him. We're not body shaming him. We're not body shaming him, and we're not the one that brought it up. But when you're talking about age and physical and mental fitness for office, you got to have this conversation if they're going to bring this up. Donald Trump is just a couple of years younger than Joe Biden. Donald Trump can't hold one glass of water, can't walk up and down a ramp, couldn't probably bend over to touch his toes if his life depended on it. And we see Joe Biden out there stretching, doing like pretty darn good stretches for a person of any age before, taking a biking break. We see him biking and why, there's just no comparison. So if this is the conversation that Republicans want to have, let's have it. Let's have it. And it is fair to have that. In terms of Democrats complaining about Joe Biden's age, what are you going to do about it? You can't change his age. You're not going to put somebody else on the ticket. He's doing an excellent job as president, probably one of the best and most able presidents we've had, in 50 years. That's just the way it is. And that is because of all of his experience. He started out in the Senate as the youngest senator. When he got elected, he wasn't even old enough to serve. But by the time he was going to be sworn in, he was old enough to serve. He would have turned 30. So he's seen the whole gambit. He's been the younger, the middle. He's been the majority. He's been in the minority. He's gone through great personal tragedy. But he has seen it all and done it all. And then he goes and serves as vice president to a young Black president, our first Black president, much younger than him, relatively new to the Senate. And he was fine with that because he understood what Barack Obama had to offer and what anybody has to offer at different times in their life. Although personally, I'd like to see people do other things in their life first before getting into Congress. The people who get in when they're too young. We need some young people in Congress, like in the House. And when they get too old, they got to go. But there's some value, as Amo Houghton said, after he had run the family business of Corning, and he gets into Congress at age 65. And he said, it shouldn't be an entry-level job. Go out and do something first. Start out in the state house, raise a family, start a business, fail, succeed. Know what it's like to do something, be a teacher, run a business, be an employee, know where taxes come from before you're in a position to decide how they're going to be spent. Serve in the military. There's a lot of wisdom to that. But I think we need them all serving in Congress. And the thing about Joe Biden is he's kind of been at every single stage in life, and he served as vice president. So, he's seasoned and calm. And I don't think that the things rattle him the way they would somebody with less experience. So the experience and wisdom and the gut that comes with it, his gut instincts have been honed over the decades. He can kind of see around corners because he knows how these things work. And I think he is the right person at the right time, the right president at the right time. And he'll continue to do so. As for Kamala Harris, I'm going to say this. She's excellent. There's no reason for her numbers to be this low. Something happened somewhere where I don't think they were properly staffing her or promoting her or whatever it is, or maybe it's not appropriate for a VP. I hope now that she's going to be running the new initiative on guns and gun control and gun deaths that the president announced that will give her a platform to highlight how capable and excellent she is. And that's what's needed. I wish it had happened sooner. I don't know why it didn't happen, but maybe it can now. As for his numbers being low, yeah, Joe Biden's numbers being low, it is alarming. He's 20 points down where he was 2016 at this time for the 2020 campaign. So that is concerning. However, there is an ebb and flow to these things. And if this is the best that Trump is going to do with these indictments, because I do think that once those the trials start, it'll change things. Other things are going to be hitting. I don't think his numbers can hold. Although, I saw Mike Murphy talking about this on something the other day that was live streaming, and it was a webinar. And he said, here's what's going to happen. These other candidates in the Republican primary aren't going to be able to break through. There's too many of them, but if they are, it's going to have to happen in the early states. It's going to have to be in the Iowa caucuses. It's going to be New Hampshire. And if there's somebody out there in some of these early states, these early primary and caucus states that can start giving Trump some trouble, that's where it's going to be. Otherwise, if Trump cleans up in the early states, he's going to run the table. And that was the term that Mike Murphy, who, by the way, is brilliant, best in the business. There's a reason why Steve Schmidt hates Mike Murphy. It's because Mike Murphy is better than him. Mike Murphy is the real deal, and Steve Schmidt has just got a good, thesaurus and dictionary. Mike Murphy doesn't spend a lot of time building a huge Twitter following, but he is the best in the business. And he was the real brains behind all things McCain. And Steve Schmidt is just a wannabe and not a good guy. And very honest. He's one of those Lincoln Project guys that stuffed millions of pockets in his bank account, and millions of dollars of donations in his pockets and his bank account, and basically screwed the Democrats on a House majority, and is one of few people that bears responsibility for where we are now. So to see him come out there and being on TV and acting like he's all trying to save the country, it's like, no, you're not. There are other people who have done more and done better and who can be trusted. He ain't one of them. But anyway, I was quoting Mike Murphy, and he was looking at what's ahead in the Republican presidential primary. And he's saying, time is running out for somebody to come through and take a chunk out of Trump. So if they can't do it in the early states, Trump's going to run the table. And he's got this. And then, folks, we're in whole new territory, and God help us. So anyway, let's bring on Bad Brad Berkwitt and see what he has to say about some of this. Hold on. So I've got Big Brad Berkwitt here, and I'm turning the tables on him. He is usually the one who interviews people, and he's interviewed me, and he has some really great guests. He sort of crosses the line from Hollywood to politics, and I think some sports. He does it all. And he's never at a loss for words. So now I'm putting him under the spotlight, and he gets to be the interviewee. Brad, welcome, and thank you for doing the show.
Thanks, Cheri. It's great to be with you.
All of a sudden, you're going to get all quiet and shy.
Oh, no, not me. Can we curse on this thing?
I already told everybody you probably will.
Okay. We'll see.
I've had people curse. Yes. So, yes. You're interesting for a lot of reasons. And you've got the background, of course, with boxing and doing boxing TV commentary. And you've been an actor and an activist and a veteran, as we know. And so one of the things I want to ask you about before I get into a whole lot of other things is that I noticed that you are coming to Washington, D.C. October 2nd through the 4th, and you're going to be with the Vote Vets group, and you guys are making some noise about the Republicans, threatening to shut down the government and how that impacts veterans and others. So you're coming in from like the Chicago area. You're not just driving in from the DC area. You're really making the effort. Tell us about this, why you're doing it. Give it all to us.
Okay. Well, first of all, Rick Hedgel, who's the organizer for Vote Vets. I don't know if you're aware of that name. He reached out to me and knew that I found out I was a veteran. He actually saw one of my new shows that I do, Memories of My Father, and it touched him. So he gave me a call and he started telling me about the organization. And I was like, Rick, everything that you're telling me about the organization is everything I've been looking to get involved with. You know, as you said, I'm a veteran, outspoken. And he said, well, hey, you know, we would like you to shoot a video of about Senator Tommy Tuberville, about his BS about holding up promotions. So I shot a video for him a couple of weeks ago and it went viral. So from there, he said, look, we got an event, like you just said, October 2nd through the 4th in DC. We're going to go to Capitol Hill. A lot of veterans, men and women of the armed forces, are going to be there. We would like to fly you in with some other people. Would you be interested? I said, absolutely, I'd be interested in going. It's something I've been wanting to do. I told Deb, I want to get more involved in this. And it was like, I don't know if you say deja vu or karma or whatever, Cheri, but it fits perfectly for what I want to do. So yes, I'm flying in. We're going to go on Capitol. I can't talk about all the specifics of everything we're going to be doing. And it's, again, I'm not the organizer of it. I'm going to be participating. But we will be there loud and proud. And if they shut the government down on the 1st, and we're coming in on the 2nd, that's even going to be, we're going to be more involved in some things too as well with them if they do shut the government down, which, as you know, it looks like they will. We'll see what happens at the last minute. Kevin McCarthy can't keep his party together, and that's your wheelhouse way more than is mine. You know,
yeah. No, I just saw this. We're recording this on Friday afternoon. Before I brought Brad on here, I checked the latest on this, and this is why this type of activism works, because they know you guys are coming to town. They know it's going to have an impact. And it doesn't just impact veterans, but everybody has a veteran in their life. You know, everybody knows somebody, has somebody in their family, and they know how harsh this could be, a government shutdown, because we've seen it before. So, as you said, Kevin McCarthy can't get to 218. He is struggling to get to 218 because there are Republican House members that are like, hey, you know, I want to do all the MAGA party loyalty and all that, but I got to answer to some vets back home. So he's struggling.
Yeah,
He's still working at it. And Schumer is working now with Mitch McConnell to cut some deals. So even the threat of people coming into Washington for peaceful protests, not this garbage we saw, you know, the January 6th, these are Americans
exactly.
coming in saying, yeah, you people work for us. So even the threat of that seems to be having some impact. But until it happens, we need you guys there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that, because you know how I feel about veterans in particular that went to the Capitol on January 6th and where I stand about it. I pull no punches.
Talk about that. Yeah, talk about that. Tell my listeners about that.
As you know, Cheri, I pull no punches. Any veteran that went to the Capitol on January 6th behind Donald Trump lying, who has no respect for the military, and Cheri, you might have talked about in your opening all this stuff from the Atlantic about General Milley, which is just, none of it shocks me. It disgusts me, but none of it shocks me. That, okay. You know, he talked about that veteran in the wheelchair, Louis Avila, I think his name is.
Who was supposed to be singing God Bless America at an event, and Trump, as president, said he didn't want disabled people. He thought it was a bad look.
Exactly. We're rotten.
That is,
it's despicable. But Cheri, you and I go back a couple of years. We've already talked offline and on my show as well about when he was with Frank Luntz interviewing him. And I got a bone of contention with Frank. He should have walked off the stage. I mean, he called him on it, but he didn't call him out hard enough when he said, you know, I like my war heroes not captured about Senator McCain. Take all the politics and leave it out. Like I tell my progressive friends, I'm telling you, and you know this, John McCain was a war hero. I don't care about his politics, which most of them I don't agree with. But when it came to that, I will take up for him today, tomorrow, until my last breath. And when Trump said that, it should have ended his run for presidency, but it didn't. He doubled down, and then we had everything else. But yeah, I mean, it's despicable. It's really despicable. All that's coming out. But in the point with the veterans, if you went there on January 6th, you defecated on your oath that you took to the Constitution that I took many times, I feel you should be brought back to active duty, tried, court-martialed, or however it works, put in prison, and lose all of your military VA, I don't care if you're wounded, lose your VA benefits. And to my liberal friends on the left that love to say, well, you know, that's too extreme. They did serve. Yes, they did serve, but you lose
You
my
served
respect when
20
you
years,
went.
right?
I
You
served for
served
20
20
years
years.
and 28 days, correct.
All right. So you have a leg to stand on this stuff. By the way, my first public criticism of John McCain, excuse me, of Donald Trump was when he made those comments about John McCain and his POW status. There were lots of rumblings before that. I mean, this was still pretty early on, but that was it for me, and I was done. And I
Right.
think you're absolutely right. That should have been the end of him. And then after that came the blood coming out of her, whatever, and
Yep.
Megan Kelly, and she's now kissing his butt, interviewing him just the other week, trying to get back into that world since she didn't make it on the other side there.
Sherry,
There,
I went after her and said, how do your kids, and I mean this, I don't pull no punches. How do your kids look at you and your husband, Doug, that you always talk, I'm pretty sure his name is Doug, that she always talks about. How do you set an example for your kids after he said the most atrocious things? It's not like someone at the local bar or at Lollapalooza said this. He was running for president of the United States. He had a huge megaphone. He talked poorly about her. And now, like you said, she's kissing his rear end to try to be relevant again. I think it's despicable.
well, she's been doing that a lot lately, and I know Megan, and we knew each other back. I used to do TV, and then since then we've been in touch when she was in the throes of her comeback. And before she got to this point, but after she went down at NBC, I think she's just doing anything she can to get back in, thinks the system and the business has been bad to her. But also she's seen people sell out and go in one direction or another in the business just to keep their gig. And she's thinking, okay, I'll do the same thing. Only in this case, it's so obvious. But a lot, kind of along those lines, you've had a lot of different people on your show. You are a little bit more forgiving of the people who supported Trump and worked for Trump and then suddenly saw the light. You're more forgiving than I am. I think Joe Walsh is one of the few legit ones. And he didn't work for Trump. In fact, he had his radio show, and that's when he was out, where you are in Chicago. And he big supporter of Trump and then changed his mind. It's not like he changed his mind to get a new gig. He was in his current gig of basically right-wing radio, and he took a hit for that. So I think he's one of the few who were legit, but so many of them, and I've talked about them openly. They seem to see the light when it gets real convenient, when their opportunities with Trump disappear. They need to pivot. It's a good way. Now I've made my money. Now I can go out and get my TV gig and sell my book. What do you think?
Sherry, you and I are the type that we don't pull any punches. It's a fair criticism. I can't argue your point. I am a little bit more forgiving. However, I look at it from the angle of, are they going against Trump now and not the Michael Flynn's that are still with them? I know he pardoned them, the Steve Bannons, all of these that have done a lot of damage. And don't get me wrong, I know they've done some damage too. Look, I'm critical of Michael Cohen. I know a lot of people on the left are huge fans of Michael Cohen, but the one thing that I would say, I never interviewed Michael. I reached out to him, but he never got back to me. But I will say this, the one question that I would have asked Mike, and I asked Joe Walsh tough questions, he didn't run. But I would have asked Mike, okay, you saw the light, you got out of the Trump cult, whatever, but what do you say, Michael Cohen, to the little guy, the little contractor, the little painter, whoever the business was that you ruined on behalf of Trump, and you knew that person wasn't guilty of anything other than Trump owing them money, and you being powerful to the point where you could tie him up in litigation or whatever? How do you reconcile that in your mind? That would
Oh
be
yeah,
the
and then
question that nobody asks.
And he sent goons after people to do stuff to me and
Right.
to others
Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
But I look at it as like the people who get on TV, and they were not people who were well known beforehand. And when they were people who were well known beforehand, and then they pivoted. I mean, I still think they're doing it to just because it's they're exploiting the situation. But people who use it for fame and fortune. They were unknown, but they worked in administration, and all of a sudden they see the light once they're done, and they're writing books, they're on TV. And first of all, you should get your 15 minutes. Okay, fine. But to my way of thinking, if none of these people were huge power players before, first of all, we want to hear what they have to say. If they have something to reveal, to tell us about the Trump administration, that's fine. But after that, I'm questioning their judgment. I mean, so many of us knew what Trump was beforehand. First of all, I don't believe that they didn't know what he was. I think they got what they needed. And when it didn't work out, or when they, their time ended, they decided to pivot and make money this way. So I kind of blame the producers and at the networks. They should be like, okay, great, thank you for telling us that, but maybe for our pundits and our political analysts, we should have people on that weren't so easily fooled.
Cheri, I can't argue with you on that. I absolutely see your point on it, and I can't argue with you on that at all. There's nothing I could say opposing what you say. It's a very fair assessment. They have to live with their conscience. I've had people on that I said, well, come on, you were if not in the well, most of them were in the White House, so I have to correct myself there. But even before then, you're New Yorkers. You didn't know. I mean, come on.
They all knew.
Of course, they did. They did. I look at it from, at least they're now trying to, back Biden, do the right thing. Some of them are still Republicans, but I absolutely see your point, and there's nothing I could say to counter it. It's a very fair assessment.
Well, okay, so we have some other news today. You and I talked about this a little bit offline. The breaking news about Bob Menendez, Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, Democrat. All these Democrats are coming out saying he needs to resign. He just was indicted for basically doing the same thing that Clarence Thomas and his wife were doing. You're taking bribes. They have pictures of just cash, just piles of cash and gold bars. He was bribed in gold bars. And this is not his first rodeo. So,
No.
But he has stepped aside as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. But notice how you've got all these you've got Democrats calling for him to resign. They're not saying, "Oh, we need to defund the Justice Department."
Right.
I mean, what happens here? Why?
But you know what? But a great talking point, Cheri. Al Franken, okay, stupid picture that he made. He wasn't a senator then, if I'm correct. And you would know right. He wasn't a senator.
He was not a senator.
He was not a senator. Dumb picture, sure, absolutely. Wrong thing to do, absolutely. Did a lot of good as a senator, resigned. Okay. My thing is, as you said, how you say Melendez? He's
Menendez, yeah.
Menendez, I'm sorry. Not found guilty. They've indicted him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you have the Democrats, like you just said, not calling to defund the DOJ, all of this type of stuff. Some are saying
not a witch hunt, not a hoax.
Not a witch hunt, so on. It's the same way I feel about Hunter Biden. If I don't care if his name was Biden, Obama, Kennedy, Berkwitt, my last name, I don't care. If they're guilty of something, they get indicted and they're found guilty. No one is above the law. To your point about parties, it's ridiculous that, first of all, the only thing right now I could compare to, not saying apples to apples, but Lauren Boebert. If they really gave a flying, you know what, Cheri, Boebert should be forced to resign for what she did for getting caught. She wasn't in the back of the movie theater, okay? She wasn't in the car at the lake. She wasn't at Kissing Point on some type of a hill. She was in a movie theater with kids and a lady behind her. First, she couldn't remember vaping. Then she was grabbing the guy's brajul, and then he's grabbing her.
Wait, grabbing his what?
His brajul.
Okay. I've never heard that to know the definition, but I'm thinking I know what that is.
Oh, you know what that is.
Just because of the context and the way you just used it in a sentence. Okay.
There you go. I taught you something new. The Italian, that's what Italians say, the brajul. The brajul. And then he's filling her up. Has anybody said anything, Cheri?
No.
On the Republican side, has anybody? Marjorie Taylor Greene, nobody?
They're fine with it.
They're perfect with it. They're absolutely good with it.
Oh, look, they're fine with what Donald Trump does. I mean, she was grabbing him by the brajul.
Exactly. She was very handy at her job. Let's leave it at that.
Oh,
but, there you go. But bada boom. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're not having the Democrats do it. And look, I'm not one of these people that all the Democrats are perfect. They do nothing wrong. Oh, no, I'm not one of those people. But when it comes to accountability, you see the Democrats, this current crop of Democrats, for the most part, calling it out.
Yeah.
you don't see the Republicans. Put this on vibrate.
They don't want it to be an albatross around their neck. And they know that there's a lot more there for Trump and going after those people. So they kind of, from a political standpoint, they kind of have to do this. But they have a history of doing this anyway, taking their own down. I mean, it hasn't always been that way, but in recent history, yeah. And I think they know that a good part of the electorate, a lot of the people who previously might have been inclined to vote Republican, or been hardcore Republicans, right now, so many of us left the GOP. Some Republicans simply aren't voting Republican these days until all of this goes away, if it ever does. But they look to the Democrats as being the anti-corruption. And so many people think that that is the most important issue of the day. We've got to clean this stuff up. We have to not just clean up corruption, but now we're saving democracy. So politically, it's smart for Democrats to be hardline on this on their own.
I agree. But you know what? I always say this, and you've said it too. I commend you for it. Country over party. But
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's despicable. Look, you asked me earlier about vote vets and Tuberville. Here's a man that I
I love how you call him Tuberville instead of Tuberville.
Tommy the Tuba.
Yeah.
But here's a man that didn't know the three branches. Here's a man that said we fought World War II against socialism when it was fascism. This is an uneducated man who was not that great I'm not going to say he was a scrub, because I don't do that. I call it balls and strikes. He was an okay football coach, but he was not great. He wasn't Bear Bryant, I can tell you that. But he's not an educated man. He never served a day. He does not respect the military. And to hold up promotions like he's doing, I know they let a couple go through. And then even the new chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Air Force general just got approved. He voted against them. But it affects many things, but it affects our readiness. My last duty station was in the Pentagon. I worked for General Peter Pace, who was the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I was on JCS.
I've met him. Yeah.
Oh, you met Pete Pace? Yeah, good man.
Yeah.
Good man. Very nice
story
man.
about him. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll tell my story about him. Go ahead.
Cool. I like to hear it. Very, very, very caring. He see me in the hallway always, hey, Petty Officer Berkwitt, how you doing? On the way to the gym. Cared about the troops, very professional. And, this isn't where, where he needs to take a stand. But I'm going to say something, and you may agree with me, Cheri, and you may not. And a lot of times you say things like this that the average person won't say. You see things out the box, and I admire you for it. I actually think that Tuberville isn't doing it for abortions and all that. I think he's doing it to hurt Biden. And I think Trump is behind it. And maybe not Trump alone, like somebody advising Trump to tell Tommy to do this, like a Mike Flynn that knows that the military, because Trump doesn't know the military, to tell him to do this, because it hurts in some ways it hurts the Biden administration, because they got to blame somebody, so they're going to blame them. Anything that happens in the country, it's President Biden's fault. If you listen to the right, I actually think this is another Trump thing. This week it came out that the Republicans admitted that they're with the government shutdown, that Trump is behind this.
Yeah, to defund these investigations against him, and they can't go through with the indictments. Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you make that point, because now that you say this, I think you are probably more than likely right. In years prior to the era of Trump, something like that, you would have been like, well, that sounds great in a book, Tom Clancy or something. But in the era of Trump, when you've got people who spend the amount of time that you do and I do and others like us really examining the details on a day-to-day basis, and thinking about this stuff and connecting the dots, I think you're probably on the nose with this assessment, which is scary.
I mean, he's honestly, Cheri, and again, this is your wheelhouse more than mine, but he's a useful idiot like Trump is. He's not an intelligent man. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but for the viewers, he beat out Doug Jones, which is probably a fluke in Alabama that the Democrat, he won, I think, a 2-year term, Doug Jones, the Democrat. Yeah. But he beat him, but he's not even remotely qualified to be a U.S. senator, but Alabama, that speaks a lot of. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia. She's not
Yeah.
remotely. And Lauren
Well,
Boebert in
remember, and
Colorado.
Herschel Walker almost won. I mean,
Herschel Walker, right? I mean,
that is
come on,
frightening. Yeah.
very.
Uh, the culture of celebrity sometimes is a little bit too strong when it bleeds over into the political world, but that's because politicians kind of like being celebrities. So maybe we, as a culture, sort of ask for that, which is a little bit frightening. But anyway, we've got so Trump is still kind of pulling the puppet strings. He's the marionette handler behind that. He's the puppeteer behind these people. He's the one. He tells when he wants something done in the House, he doesn't call the Speaker. He doesn't call McCarthy. He sits down with Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's calling the shots.
Yeah, she has Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, think about this, Cheri. They removed her from committees when Pelosi was the Speaker of the House.
For a
So,
reason.
but in the end, Marjorie Taylor Greene won. She won. She's really the Speaker by default. She's got Kevin's, I don't even say grapes, his seeds, because he's got no, you know what.
In her purse, yes, I've said
in her
that too.
purse,
She's
in
carrying his
her
balls in
yeah,
her purse.
exactly in her gym bag probably. She's she did a video today I saw when she was in front of, it looked like gymnastic things. Only trying to figure out what she was doing with those, but talking about the shutdown and how they shouldn't have been sent home and all of that. But she owns them. She owns McCarthy. Look, Cheri, I think knowing you, and if you disagree, say it. But you and me, if it would have taken more than one vote, first of all, Nancy Pelosi would have known the votes before they took a vote for her to be Speaker. If it took more than once or even twice for me to be Speaker, I would have said, you know what? This isn't for me. I don't want it. 15 times and you walk around and you're proud of that?
And he had to bargain away everything. Yeah, he had to bargain away everything.
Everything. You got them whispering in Matt Gaetz, which was hilarious. They put the Godfather music over that video, a TikTok video or something on Matt Gaetz. They gave him an offer. But now you got Matt Gaetz, who shouldn't be anywhere near Congress. He's disgusting, calling you out. And it's like, really? I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I mean, I worked on Capitol Hill for so many years and got there in the Reagan administration, actually. And what we thought were partisan fights and political fights were nothing compared to this.
Right.
Right. But it was tough stuff because here's a difference. I think we all wanted the same thing. We just had different ways about getting there, but we all wanted what was best for America. And I don't think that's happening anymore in this Congress.
Oh no, Cheri, it's the most toxic. And I'm friends with Representative Gloria Johnson, one of the Tennessee Three, and we talk quite a bit offline. And I was telling her, I said, outside of Congress in D.C., I think she works in one of the most toxic houses that you could work in Tennessee. Every time Justin Pearson and Justin Jones say anything, they want to shut him down. They want to lynch him. They're so racist.
Jeez.
I went after him. The Speaker of the House down there, Cameron Sexton, and Gino Bulso and all those creeps down there. But I'm going to add one more thing that you said. I absolutely agree with you about we wanted the same things. But you also, and again, your wheelhouse, and you were there, so you could vouch for this. They could argue tooth and nail on the floor and then go into Georgetown and have a beer or dinner together. That's not happening anymore, Cheri. If it is happening, it's happening in the dark. Say that again.
I'm from Peoria, and I worked for Bob Michael. He was the House Minority Leader, and he could sit down and he would have dinner and have a beer with Tip O'Neill.
Right.
And he and Danny Rostenkowski used to drive back to Illinois together before they were flying back and forth when they were both Illinois congressmen. And Danny Rostenkowski ended up becoming the very, very powerful. He's a Democrat, very powerful chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. But and I worked the second time on the Hill, I did two rounds, a couple of jobs each time. But then there was a few years where I did some lobbying and some campaigns, and I went back. And by this time, we started having kind of these right-wing fringy people. And before the right wing, they were unimportant. It was just a fringe. I mean, you didn't even think about them. Now they had a seat at the table. That's how I first met Ginny Thomas. Her husband's a Supreme Court justice. And I'm like, why does she have a job in a leadership office with the House Majority Leader, Dick Armey? I'd be in meetings with her, and it was just a completely different dynamic where I was kind of wondering, it wasn't like looming in the front of my head, but I just kind of was always thinking, is she doing here? Why do these people have a seat at the table? What are these weird evangelical family groups, as we call them? They have too much power. It was just starting to happen then. But we didn't have that with Bob Michael.
Right, right. I tell my progressive friends all the time, because I'm not progressive, I'm more in the center. I said, you guys, not all of them, but you hate every Republican president since, except for maybe Abraham Lincoln. I said, but the truth of the matter is, and I stand on this, I've said it on my show and I'll say it on yours as well. I do not believe in my heart of hearts that Papa Bush, Ronald Reagan, even Bush Jr. would have allowed a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Lauren Boebert in their party. When they went with the QAnon and it wasn't a plane that hit the Pentagon, that Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Jewish space lasers, and Q as a patriot, all that crap that she spewed when she attacked the military, when these Republicans, to me, which is treason, side with Putin over us, I honestly don't believe that any of those presidents would have ever allowed, and even people that ran, Bob Dole, John McCain, Jack Kemp. I like Jack Kemp. He was in Papa Bush's cabinet. None of them would allow these crazies in the party. I'm not saying that you have to agree with all of their policies. I'm talking about the insanity, the racism, the misogyny, the hate, the complete hate that they have. And honestly, their disrespect for the Constitution, and really their disrespect for this country, because Reagan stood with Gorbachev, and they would have never stood in Helsinki in 2017 with the DNI, Dan Coates, in the front row, and say, well, yeah, my intelligence people, but I asked Putin, and he said he didn't meddle in election, and I believe Dan Coates' jaw hit the ground. They should have gassed up Air Force One, left Trump over there to swim back home. And I don't know if it was be the 25th Amendment or whatever it was. He should have been removed for treason right then. Even though I would have hated for Mike Pence to be the president, because I can't stand him, he should have been put in, and Trump should have been gone on that alone. That's treason to me.
That is a very important statement. And Dan Coates, by the way, I think he was one of the few people who truly went into the Trump administration thinking that he could be a guardrail, that he could do some good. I mean, he had already been a senator. He didn't need this. A lot of people got administration and White House jobs with Trump that in previous administrations could never even have gotten within a mile of that. You look at Kayleigh McEnany, who had zero political experience, and frankly, Kellyanne Conway, and I've said this on the show, she was a pollster, and you could tell that she was all starstruck working for the president because she had never worked for congressman or a senator or anything like that. And she didn't know how to act. She didn't know how to behave. And she made it about her. And so many people like this got these jobs that they were unqualified for. And because Trump wanted loyalists and people who would do as they're told, and other people who actually had careers before that didn't need this, they could walk away. They might take a while to regroup. And that's what happened. And Coates was, I think, kind of a rare exception to that. And he really thought he could do it.
Yeah. And the other one that I would add to that I always defended, I served with him, I didn't know him personally, was General Mattis. I felt that General Mattis went in there too, because if you remember this or not, when you remember they were at the table, this was early on in the Trump administration, and they went around the table, and even Pence, Donald Trump is so wonderful. Yeah, he's 200. I'm being sarcastic. He's 215 pounds.
I remember.
He's as handsome as Cab Hunter in his youth. I'm showing my age, but all that stuff. And General Mattis said it's an honor to serve the troops. He never said Trump. He said the troops, because he went in there because he cared about the troops. And even Trump lied about him. He did not nickname him Mad Dog. He was nicknamed Mad Dog before he ever went into the Trump administration. And as well as I do, everybody that he put in there, after he only hired the best people, remember? Till they didn't agree with him. And then they were crap, they were shit, they were this, they were stupid, they were idiots, they weren't all, which is why it is so effing scary. If he gets in again, even though he's a useful idiot, he knows that the second time around, we'll have Mike Flynn as Secretary of Defense, Dinesh D'Souza will be Secretary of State, Kash Patel will be Attorney General, and that's what we'll have around him, and it'll be horrible in this country.
There will be no Mattis.
Done.
Yeah, we won't have a Mattis around or Dan Coates or anything. And Mattis, probably, given his background, when he saw them going around the table like this, he probably instantly knew the danger of that type of a dynamic where a president was demanding that type of weird
Yes,
personal loyalty from people, some of them who were there to defend the country against enemies within and without. And he's within. So that really was kind of frightening. I mean,
very.
the thing to your earlier point, you were talking about how Bush one, Bush two, none of them would have done this, and we even Dick Cheney, who people look at as Darth Vader, he was absolutely not. And I don't even think that had anything to do with his daughter. He just this was some crazy stuff here, this Trump stuff. The strategically and also just in terms of honesty, when Democrats say, well, the Republican Party's been like this since Reagan. It just got worse. So when they do that, first of all, as a political strategy, that's stupid because so many of us who were Republicans who no longer are and who vote Democrat and help Democrats, you probably shouldn't be smacking us around like that. And also, since we were on the inside, we know that that's not true. There were things that people could disagree on. But to your point, these presidents and the people around them never would have tolerated this sort of thing. These people could never have gotten in. You never would have had people like this working in the administration or being stars in Congress. And even with regard to Fox, I don't know if I agree with this, but Gretchen Carlson has said that for everything that Roger Ailes was, and he was a lot of bad stuff, she does not think that had he lived and survived, had he survived at Fox and had he survived life, that he would have allowed Trump and MAGA to take over the network this much. I don't know if I agree with that completely, but it's pretty bad. So strategically, from a political standpoint, they shouldn't be hanging that albatross around everyone's neck. It turns people off, and I think it's really important to draw that line that we may have had disagreements before, but this was Trump and Putin and a weakness in our system and the media. I mean, take this for what it was. Look at 2015. And who made this happen? There might have been other efforts where Putin or other bad players were trying to affect our elections, but this happened because those efforts were there. We know that we know that Putin was trying to get, and we know that he wanted to do more with Ukraine, and it happened a lot because of the media too. And I think people need to be honest about that instead of saying, "Oh, it's the party's fault and Ronald Reagan." It's like, doesn't help. First of all, not true, and it ain't going to help you get people to vote for you if that's the attitude.
Cheri, I absolutely agree with you. I had a tweet earlier this week that went viral, and I've said I'm beyond pissed because seeing NBC Kristen Welken. Well, is it Welken or Welker? Welken? Meet the press.
Well, yeah, Welker.
Right. My problem is I know they have to cover Trump. I understand he's news, but nobody, at least mainstream media, who says they're better than right-wing media. And I'm not saying everybody, because there's some people in the mainstream that I like, but he ran over her. And my liberal friends, they say, well, he confessed and Jack Smith's got more stuff that he can use. I don't want him interviewed because all he does is, like, he ran over Caitlin Collins. He doesn't respect women, first of all. He takes over these interviews.
Newsflash.
Yeah, exactly. He wouldn't last 30 seconds with me because the first lie that he told, I wouldn't let him get it past it, and he'd walk off the set. But platforming him, you see people in the business that you and I know, I'm not going to call them out, that are interviewing people like Paul Manafort. For what? He's a convicted criminal who got pardoned by Trump. What does it? Well, we need to hear all sides. No, we don't. Well, no, First Amendment, the freedom of speech. I don't want to hear that shit.
No, you don't. That does not mean freedom of speech means anybody off the street can go and demand camera time on the networks. It doesn't work like that. And the both sidesism, it's and I had this conversation with some producers recently for it's in America, but it's for foreign entities and they want to do both sides. And I said, at this point, the guy's under 91 counts for indictments. It's no longer about both sides because that means you're going to have someone lying. And so I would urge you to look at everything as political analysis instead of having both sides on where you're each fighting for your side. Because I think we're past a point in the era of Trump where you can really do a both sides thing with a straight face. And in terms of the meet the press stuff and some of the others, I'm thinking, what did they have to give away? Because you have to negotiate to get these people on. So what was negotiated away to get Trump to agree to do this, that they wouldn't fact check him? They could have, Brad, they could have said, you know what? We are not going to air this interview because he told so many mistruths, so many lies, and made so many factual errors intended to mislead. And then they could have had the entire hour be a group of political journalists and political operatives, real ones, not pretend ones, picking apart. They could have showed clips and pick it apart and making it clear that this won't be tolerated. And they should do that with some of the political operatives, like Kellyanne. I mean, if you lie, it's like you're not going to get invited on again, like ever, even when you leave the White House, because you're not trustworthy. And that's how it used to be. That would
Well,
have.
Cheri,
Now,
let's
would you have liked to have seen that? I think it would have gotten huge
yes,
ratings if
yes,
they'd announced in
yes,
advance. We
yes.
aren't airing it. Yeah,
But Cheri, but you're let's be honest. And again, credit to you. I always believe in giving people credit. And I'm going to go back to Dick Cheney in a second. I want to make a point off of your talking point. You lost almost all your career over standing up and being a never Trumper because you were a Republican at the time and telling the truth. You told the truth. Okay. You opposed his bullshit. You knew it from the beginning. You knew what he was. You had many years of experience, and they blackballed you because of it. That's not right. But yet they have people on TV that are playing both sides, taking up. Kayleigh's on. How I know it's Fox News. So really, Fox News, we can't really say, but you have look, George Conway has no effing business on MSNBC or CNN. Nobody's going to tell me that George Conway, who slept in the same bed as Kellyanne Conway, or at least in the same house all those years, didn't know what she was and what she is. She's a grifter.
Look, he tried to be Trump's Solicitor General,
exactly,
and made the final three and didn't get the job. That got leaked out. He didn't get the job. So now he went for a second job at DOJ. And once it got out, he was never offered that job, like they say. People lie about that. He did not. He was one of the finalists, and word got out. He immediately withdrew his name and sent that letter because that would be too embarrassing to lose out on two jobs. So once his name became public, and that's when he decided to use his good old, he was tight with Leonard Leo, gave him a lot of money. Those guys were joined at the hip for decades. So now all of a sudden, George Conway becomes never Trump. He has no real political experience. He's not a former federal prosecutor. He's never served in a cabinet or an administration. He's a rich corporate lawyer. He made $2 million a year. And so there's virtually nothing useful or interesting about him except for the fact that he was married to Kellyanne. So he exploited that, became Twitter famous, gets himself on TV, joined our Never Trump meetings. We have these, every 2 weeks, there was a group of us, kind of high profile people that would meet, and they were secret. And one day George is there because he asked to join. And it just so happened, it turned out to be a few weeks before Justice Kennedy announced his retirement. And then George, his good friend, Brett Kavanaugh, was nominated. And I now realize that George's job was to get prominent never Trumpers to support Kavanaugh, because that's how you make it safe for people like Susan Collins to vote to confirm. And no fewer than 3 people in our group, prominent people, wrote their columns in support of Kavanaugh. I never went back to the meetings after George. I knew something was wrong and even predicted he's going to start a group of some kind that he's going to hit. He wasn't getting to the back of the line. He came into this to become a star and to do exactly what he did. And it worked out for him. But
sure did.
He's on TV solely because he was married to Kellyanne. There was no other reason. Look at our friend Glenn Kirshner and look at the career that he had.
Right.
I listen to what he has to say because he's been in it. George hasn't.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I want to say something with Dick Cheney you mentioned, because I always, like I said, I don't care who it is. If it's something that's true, it's true. And if it's something good and it's true, then it's true. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney were the only ones last year. She was still a congresswoman that went to the memorial for the Capitol Police. Dick Cheney went with his daughter. No Republicans went. Those cops got the shit kicked out of them. Some died. Michael Fanone will never be the same. Harry Dunn, all of those guys, they held the line. They got the shit beat out of them. But it's the party of law and order. But none of the Republicans give a damn about them. And Mitch McConnell,
because some of the Republicans,
McCarthy, remember that? And Lindsey Graham, count me out. Lindsey Graham said till next week. He got counted back in.
Well, and those Capitol Hill police officers then had to realize that some of their own sold them out, and some of these members of Congress that they were there to protect and defend had sold them out.
Yep.
I mean, that's got to, I mean, talk about adding insult to injury.
Yeah.
That doesn't even have to explain it. So, want to ask about a couple more things, and then I'll let you run. The apocalyptic evangelicals have said that today was supposed to be the rapture. It was supposed to be sunset in Israel, which would have been about 11:30 or so our time. There was no rapture. Um,
I was gonna say,
some
oh, I need to go. I can't do this interview anymore if it's the
because of
rapture.
the rapture, yeah. And the thing is, the reason I think this is significant is we've had people serving like in the Trump cabinet and people serving in Congress, and this is a new thing during this era of Trump who believe this crap.
Well, does that fall under the Christian nationalism that our buddy Jenny Cohen talks about a lot?
Um, it might be part of it, but they believe in the rapture. And by the way, the rapture, the first time we heard about this was some minister, some evangelical guy in the 1800s started talking about it. This wasn't something in the Bible. This is only something that's been around for a little over 100 years, this idea of the rapture. Um, but did I get forgotten in the rapture? Did you see any people floating up? I didn't see no one floating up to the sky.
Well, you know what? I think I saw Noah out
I mean,
there. He said I
I
can only
haven't looked
take
out
two
my
of you.
window. No, no, I said I'm
Well,
going to take two of you. I mean, I'm
I
looking out my
know you're
window
gonna take your
now.
cat with you, right? Your cat goes with
Yeah,
you.
I don't have any cats. I have
Oh, you
feral
don't have any
cats.
cats anymore?
Well, they're not even feral. I'm not allowed to bring them in this apartment. It's terrible. I just found that out. So I'm between a rock and a hard place. It's
Uh-oh.
heartbreaking. I won't even talk about that. But I am looking out the window. I see no rapture. Um, I'll keep looking. I'll keep looking. I'll let you know. I'll start tweeting if I
Yeah,
see it.
please do text me.
But
I want
right
I want to
now,
put my galoshes on.
so we just forget that these people were saying people who can vote in Congress and are part of that group who were saying this was supposed to happen. It didn't happen.
Insanity.
We don't talk about it. We just pretend that they never said this. I don't know.
I'm speechless. I'm
Okay,
speechless.
so one more thing here. There's a lot of talk. People saying, "Oh, Biden's too old." He's not. He's in great shape. He's only a couple years older than Trump. Trump looks horrible and everything. So that whole thing about Biden shouldn't run is terrible. Because he's so terrible because he's not. He's a good president where his experience and it comes into play now more than anything. He's got good instincts. He's been a young senator. He's been gone through the whole thing, been a vice president to a young first black president. So he's fine. I think he's the president we need right now. And so a lot of people are using that because here's my theory. They're using it because they want to make the vice president, Kamala Harris, the issue. And not because they think she's incompetent, but because this is a racist country. And and I know you're married to a woman of color, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that this is this dog whistle of racism and sexism to make people afraid of Kamala Harris becoming president. And that's what I think the age issue is, because first of all, there's nothing else to use against Joe Biden, and you can't change his age. But Trump is almost the same age, but in much worse shape. So there really is no other reason. And I do this. I'm a political strategist. I taught this stuff at the master's level, and I've run campaigns. So you have to look at why are they doing this? Try to connect dots. Go down this road. That's the only reason that I can think of. I think it is racism and sexism. They want people to be quietly afraid of a woman of color becoming president.
Cheri, I think you're absolutely onto it. When Trump said he can't understand, I went after him. He can't understand Vice President Harris because she speaks in rhyme. You know what that means. That's effing racist. That's an effing racist comment. President Biden is 80. Trump is 77. President Biden can ride a bicycle. Donald Trump has to drive in a golf cart because he can't walk 5 feet, to throw his ball back into
he can't even see his feet, let alone touch his feet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's 215 pounds and he looks like Brad Pitt when he was young. But it's ridiculous. No, I think you're absolutely right. Look, I love this country. I do. I defended this country for 20 years and 28 days. But this country is racist. And here's the thing. I live in reality. This country is always going to be racist because the minority should never control the majority, but we will never get a consensus of people that are not going to be racist. And Donald Trump did not start racism in this country, but what he did was he pulled them out of the sewers or the swamps. He pulled the Band-Aid off, and they're not going back. They feel that he can say it, so they can say it. What they don't realize, a lot of them, is that he's 50 Secret Service agents deep. So when you say that racial crap, somebody might be able to jack your jaws where they can't get to Trump. But I absolutely agree with you how they feel. I don't have a problem with Biden's age. Look, I never tell anybody Biden was my choice of candidate during the nomination process in 19, but or 9 or 20. What is it? No, 20. However, I don't feel he's too old. I feel that his mental state is just fine. I think he doesn't get enough credit. I do get aggravated because I don't think the Democrats' messaging is strong. I don't think that they speak enough. They should be out on your podcast, my podcast, anywhere they can get to reach people instead of charts. Because I think sometimes Democrats have a tendency to, I don't want to call them elitist, but kind of speak where the average person doesn't understand it. And their messaging, which a lot of Democratic candidates I had on, I asked them, what's one thing you say about your party you'd like to see different? They always say messaging. They always say, we need to do a better job at getting out there what President Biden has accomplished, his cabinet, and so on. But yeah, no, I do agree with you. I think it is racism. There's 3 years apart. And if you look at Donald Trump and you look at President Biden, it's night and effing day.
Well, that's why someone like me, I try to walk this backwards. Like, okay, why are they choosing to do this? Because it doesn't make sense. He's in great shape. Biden is. I mean, I saw him doing stretches on a bike break at the beach. We saw pictures of that most people in their 20s can't do.
Right.
And why would why would Republicans even want to compare Trump to that? And that's you have to keep asking those questions. And that's when I came up with the racism against Kamala Harris. I think that's what this is really about.
Trump is still going on.
Maybe we need to start talking about that more.
I think we should. Trump is still going on with the Obama stuff. Did you see when he did this interview with the Meet the Press lady, Chris? He said, I'm pretty sure, or maybe he said in a speech. I can't keep up now because he says no. I think it was in a speech somewhere or a rally. He said about running against President Obama. I mean, he's got such a fixation for President Obama. It's not even funny. But before we end, I got to ask you. You had mentioned. You said I'm going to tell your Peter Pace story.
Oh yeah, my Peter Pace story. A number of years ago, I was doing when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, first Marine chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, by the way. And it was the opening of the new Marine Museum out there at where was it? Out in Virginia, kind of way out there. And
Quantico.
Yeah, at Quantico. And I was there and for this event. And then President Bush was coming in. You see the blood truck coming in. Wherever the president goes, there has to be the blood truck. And there was, all these Marines are there, and there was this young Marine who he almost died, but his head had been split open. You could see the thing, and he was permanently damaged, but he lived. So he had to have crutches. He couldn't walk, or you couldn't talk to him that clearly, but he knew what was what. And after the ceremony, he wanted to go into that museum, and there's like this big V walkway that you go, and the sun was coming. It was like this beautiful day, and he's walking, and we're all walking with him, and his mother is there, and he was a Hispanic guy, and his mother was Hispanic. So we were trying to help him get in there, but he wanted to walk it himself. And pretty soon, the sun's in my eyes, but pretty soon this man comes jogging up in uniform and stands there in front of the Marine and salutes him and shakes his hand and talks to him. And then I realized that was Peter Pace, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, had seen. I mean, it gave chills. And afterwards, when Pace, jogged away, somebody looked at the soldier and they said, "Do you know who that was that you just spoke to and who saluted you and shook your hand?" He said, "No." And he said, "That was Peter Pace, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff." And literally, this guy's mother was like, crying. And it was just such a moment, because at first it took me. The sun was shining in my eyes. It was just one of these you couldn't have written a better scene in a movie. But Pace was way down there. I mean, he must have jogged up about 25 yards or more when he saw
I love hearing stories
this
like
this injured Marine making his way to tour this museum. So yeah.
Which makes it, when you tell a story like that, Cheri, the beauty of the man is his humanity. And then you hear the story in Atlantic about how he talked about that soldier that was,
Trump. Yeah.
Trump talking about him. You just want to,
yeah, Trump doesn't
lose your mind.
Trump doesn't like disabled people or Black people or
women. Don't like anybody but himself.
Yeah. Okay. Brad Berkwitt, thank you for coming on. Everybody follow him on Twitter at Bad Brad RSR. Where else do you want them to find you and look up?
Yeah, check out my show, the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show. Cheri's been on a couple times. She was on a Moving Humanity Forward panel with Pan Keefe, and Ann Cusack was on there, John Cusack's sister, who's an actress and a singer. Go to YouTube and just type in the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show, or type in the Ringside Report web TV channel, and it'll pull it up. Either way, check out Cheri's shows. I did a 360. Find out who Cheri's favorite singer of all time was, and many other things.
I
remember Cheri said, "Brad, you do these interviews, and you're also like the Barbara Walters." And look, now serious.
Who did I say? Who did I say?
You said Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, I used to want to be her. And also, if people go to your Twitter page, they can see links to your YouTube and everything else. So,
yep.
Look forward to what you guys are going to do. You and Vote Vets in DC a little over a week from now. And I think that just the news that you guys are looking to gather and some of the activism, folks, this is why activism is so important. Because as we said, the reason Kevin McCarthy cannot get to 218 in the House is because of guys like Brad and Vote Vets, and people are saying, "Oh, you think we're going to be quiet over this stuff? Shut down the government." So, love what you do. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you too, Cheri, for having me on.
All righty.
Great, thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of Politics with Cheri Jacobus. You can find me on Twitter at Cheri Jacobus. I've also got a website, CheriJacobus.com. But listen, it's not a fair fight if you're listening to me, if you join Patreon, but the people you're debating politics with aren't. Your friends and family aren't. They aren't as informed as you are. So if you want it to be a fair fight, if you're a decent human being and you don't just want to keep wiping the floor with these folks, send them my way. Tell them to sign up at Patreon and start listening to Politics with Cheri Jacobus. And thanks.